Red Bull's chief technical officer, Adrian Newey's contract is reportedly up for renewal this year. Newey had signed with Red Bull to become their technical operation leader from McLaren back in 2005. So obviously he is a large portion of the successes that we've seen at Red Bull throughout almost 2 decades. If you were a betting man, Laurence, Nate, would you say that he renews, he stays at Red Bull? Could somebody entice him away to a new team? Could we see him retire? I believe he's mid-60s at this point. What say you?
Yeah, I think he's got everything he wants at Red Bull, and that's been the case. So there was a time, it must have been in around 2015, 2016, basically when Mercedes were dominating, and the performance of the Mercedes engine versus the Renault engine that Red Bull were using there was such a big gap in Mercedes' favor that I think Adrian got to a point where he felt no matter what he did with the car, it was never going to make the difference. And he seemed to fall out of love a bit with F1 in that period. And so he went off and worked on a few different projects. He did America's Cup. They also tied up with Aston Martin around kind of 2017, 18, and he worked on the Aston Martin Valkyrie, which is one of the most amazing road cars, if not the most amazing road car out there at the moment. And so he's always had this, they've always given him this flexibility to go and pursue these occasional passion projects away from F1 so that he can come back to it when they need him most. And they needed him certainly coming into this new regulation set and look at it with, a fresh pair of eyes and not feeling completely weighed down by F1. So I'm not sure another team would really offer that flexibility to him and all the rest of it. And also he's done exactly what, Adrian Newey does best at the moment. He's designed a car that is so much faster than everyone else that it's almost impossible for everyone to catch up. And I'm sure there's a huge amount of satisfaction from that. But also seeing what he's done in the past, I feel like there's still a huge amount that he'll want to get out of it. He won't be happy with just, winning by 30 seconds. He'll want to be winning by 40 seconds, 50 seconds. And if he believes there's scope within these regulations to be able to, continue to add performance, continue to come up with innovative ideas, stuff that's still compelling for him as an engineer, then I think he'll do it. But I suppose what we may see is that if he is negotiating a new contract, he may negotiate a few things into it that he'd like to do with his spare time. He might look to have more spare time. And, Red Bull and Adrian himself have pointed out again and again and again that while Adrian does oversee, the concept of the car, he does work on some specific parts of it. There's a huge team working there below him and kind of, contributing ideas and coming up with parts of the car that make it go incredibly fast that are not necessarily coming directly from Adrian. So they've made a big effort to make sure that everyone there is inspired by Adrian, but not entirely reliant on him. So sure. I could see a situation where, if he feels like there's not much of an engineering challenge left in these new set of regulations, I kind of doubt that's the case. But if he does feel that way, then maybe step back for a couple of years, come back if he needs to, be a consultant. There's so many options. But what I can't really see is him going to another team just because he is so rooted in Red Bull and so much a part of it. And him and Christian Horner, who's the team principal at Red Bull, have really worked so hard together to get that team to where it is, and also to come back from where it was just a couple of years ago, where it looked like Mercedes were unbeatable, and now look who's unbeatable now. It's Red Bull, and I think Adrian, I imagine, will derive a huge amount of satisfaction from that, and will probably want to continue to be a part of that.
Is he one of the greatest, if not the greatest, designer engineer in F1 history?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's difficult to. So, I mean, in the modern era, there's no one even close. I mean, Laurence mentioned there that he joined from McLaren in 2005. I can actually remember reading the Autosport magazine when they kind of announced that move was happening, and I was like, what? Because at the time, Red Bull was like it was just a drinks company. We did not associate it with racing, and he'd had Newey's name even then, even in 2005. Was legendary. Just the mere suggestion that Newey had designed a car meant, hey, this car's going to be quick. He had title successes at Williams, at McLaren. He'd had success before then, obviously, as well. So when he went to Red Bull, it was kind of like, oh, okay. It was kind of the first time in my head that I was like, well, they must be taking Formula One pretty seriously if they've got this guy in, and he's kind of married up to the idea that they could also win as well. Like, it's a two-way street, isn't it? So, and just on that point, I agree with everything Laurence said. At Red Bull, Newey's been able to kind of build the culture from the ground up. And, they win in a certain way, they operate in a certain way. And I think that Ferrari, obviously, there's question marks around what that place is like behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. Newey's age, I don't see that being an appealing proposition, going to a place that's kind of in flux. There's kind of all these moving parts. There's all this politics to it. At Red Bull, Newey's kind of part of the furniture. He knows, he knows what everything's like there. There's no surprises at Red Bull for him. He knows Horner so well. He knows the team so well. So I can't see it happening. I mean, it would take a pretty monumental bid from Ferrari anyway, I think, to turn his head, but he'd probably just look at it and think, to be honest, I don't need this at this point in my life. So yeah, I think that's two pretty comprehensive no's, sadly. We've poured quite a lot of water on that.
Laurence, would you agree? Would he be in your Mount Rushmore? What does that even mean? Does that mean anything to you guys? Your Mount Rushmore of designers, engineers?
We don't have a Mount Rushmore in the UK. I really want one.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
I do. I mention it in articles all the time.
A vacation you want to go on when you're 12 years old. Pack the car and go to Mount Rushmore and look at rocks, and then
apparently much smaller in real life as well. When you get there, apparently everyone's super underwhelmed. They get there and they're like, "Wait, is that it?" And they realize very clever camera work has made it look huge.
Yeah, if you're listening and it's on your bucket list, you should just take it off. Just look at it on the internet, okay? So Laurence, you do obviously get the reference. He would be on your Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, definitely. He'd be up there, probably in the George Washington position. But you got other engineers. So I mean, Colin Chapman would definitely be a key figure on there. He was basically the founder of Lotus and works on so many revolutionary ideas. Gordon Murray is another one who was responsible for was part of the team that created the most dominant car ever in Formula One history, which is obviously a record that Red Bull's going out after, and that was the McLaren in 1988, won 15 or 16 races. So there'd be a few big names up there, but undoubtedly you'd have Adrian Newey up there as well.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube, and for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app, and for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.